Right. All right. Hi, guys. Miss Kelly here, looking at our next section in our little bit of a geometry review. And we're just talking about naming angles. How do we name those angles from your geometry year? All right. So first off, let's talk about what makes an actual angle. All right. And specifically, it is the space that is between two rays that share an endpoint. Okay, it is the space between two rays that share an endpoint. Sorry, I'm just going to rewrite this here. All right. Now, angles are going to be measured in two different ways. They can be measured in degrees, which you are familiar with from geometry. They're also going to be measured in what's called radians. And we'll take a look more at how do you measure an angle in radians later on in this chapter. Now, when it comes specifically to naming the angles, and that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time on today, there are three different ways that you can name an angle. Okay, three different ways that you can name it. Now, before we get into those three different ways, we need to make sure you guys remember what the parts of an angle are called. So when we look at our parts, all right, we've got some special things going on here. Like the definition said, it's the space between two rays. So those two rays are making our sides. So we've got two sides here. So that first side that we're looking at, we have ray that starts at B and passes through A. And then my second side starts at B and passes through C. So there's my two sides. The other big thing that we're going to be looking at for your angles is the vertex point of every angle. And that is where those two rays are coming together. That's that common endpoint that they share. And that's what makes the vertex of every angle. So in this case, point B is our vertex angle. So now we're going to take these parts and use that to actually name. Now, when we deal with naming, okay, there's three different ways. Now, one of those ways is if you're just looking at a single angle like we have here in the picture, meaning there's only one vertex point and there's only two rays happening. This is our single angle. So when we're doing a single angle, we only can use the vertex. And that's our faster way, using the vertex. So in this case, our vertex is our point B. Now, to make this name, we use our angle symbol, which looks kind of like the less than. But it does have a flat bottom on it. It is flat along the bottom. So when I name this kind of angle, I use my angle symbol and the vertex letter, in this case, B. Okay. Another way to name this is if inside that space, maybe there was a number. So let's say there was a 2 sitting in the space. We're still using the vertex, but we could use then our angle symbol and that number. So there's two of the three ways that we can name these, either with the vertex letter or a number, if there is a number in the space. And my third way could possibly happen if there are multiple angles at the same vertex. You can use this way if you just have a single angle as well. It's just another option. Now, unfortunately, if we were only to use the vertex angle to name multiple angles, this is where we might have a little bit of a problem. Because guys, if I say, look at angle E, it's very difficult to know which angle exactly am I talking about, because you've got the angle in the top, which could be considered angle E. I have the angle on the right side, which could be considered angle E. I have the angle in the bottom, same thing, angle E, or I can have the angle on the right, on the left, angle E. How do you know which one I'm referring to? So we have to get much more specific when there's multiple angles happening at these intersections or at this same vertex point. So we use three letters. That doesn't look like a 3, sorry about that. We use 3 letters for when there are multiple angles going on at the same point. So let's say we look at the top here. So for this top space, the trick here is to start at a point at one of those arrows. So I can either start at point A and then follow the path back. So if I start at A, follow it down, the next one I reach is E, and then the next point I reach is D. So there's my one way. Now, if we started at the other point at the arrow, then I start with angle D, follow it down to E, and then follow it back out to the other arrow for A. So there's two different names, two names for that exact same spot. Either of those names are correct because they are still referring to that same space at the top that connects point A to D. So we're looking at that space. Now, let's say we were looking at the space on the right. Similar situation. Choose one of those letters at the arrow. So let's say D here. So if I start with point D, follow it back to E, and then follow it out to the other arrow for C. All right, if you choose to start at the other point at the arrow, in this case C, then I could follow it, start at C, then move to E, and then follow it back out to letter D. And I have that way. Now, if you start to notice, these two ways are very, like I said, they're very similar to each other. And really, the letters have just reversed order. And we still get two names for the exact same space. Now, if we do the bottom section, the bottom space down here, okay, similar idea. If I start at, let's say, B this time, so angle B, follow it back to E, follow it back out to C. And there's one angle. If I choose the other direction, start at C, so angle C, then we hit point E, and then follow it back out to B. So there's my way for the bottom space. And then our last one, sorry, didn't mean to erase that part. And then our last space over here on the left, same idea, two names. If I start at angle A, the next point I hit is E, and then the last one B. And if you're starting to see the pattern now, I should be able to reverse those three letters and still have the same space. So the big thing here, guys, to remember when naming these angles is what, especially with three letters, what does each position stand for? So again, no matter what, we have your symbol, which starts it off every time. The first letter, so I'm going to use C-E-B that's there, C, E, and B. The first and last letters come from the arrows. I like to call those the arrow letters. And then our last one, E, sitting in the middle from your vertex. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed how to name your angles. Be sure to check out my next video on how do we classify them. All right, bye, guys.